Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be doing another tutorial for our content creation cohorts. And today's tutorial is going to be all about working with agents. How do I work with such a wide spectrum of agents? Everything from high-end multi-million-dollar listings to as-is low-end properties. I also work with commercial agents and agents that specialize in vacant lots. How do I manage to create products for all of these and keep them under one house? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly how I do that, which allows me to work with the most amount of agents, creating the most amount of income for me. Let's jump right in. Thanks again for joining us, folks. As I mentioned in the top, we're talking about how I work with so many different agents. And the best way to do this is to get out of your traditional photographer brain. When I first started, and a lot of photographers I meet along the way have one thing in mind: the quality of their image. They are obsessed with the quality of the image they provide. This is great if you're a photographer, but if you're an agent and you have a business run and you have a very specific amount of marketing dollars, not every photographer is going to fit into every budget. Now, how do I personally deal with this? Is that I have multi-level stages of photography packaging products. That was a lot of P's in a row, I know. What it comes down to is simply offering a product for every different type of agent. Some agents don't care about quality at all. They just need images to get it listed. Then there's some agents that care about quality, but they care more about the amount of images they have for marketing purposes. Now, you can't just give them anything. You have to provide them with at least a quality product, but they're more interested in the number of images received than the quality. Then lastly, you have your agent that only cares about quality. These are usually your high-end listing agents. These people care about quality more than anything else. They don't care how many images you provide. All they care is that these images are the best and they stand out in the market. This brings me back to what I just brought up: photographers and their constant obsession for the highest quality image. So photographers and this rare niche of super high-end agents go really well together because they care the most about the quality image. But the majority of properties sold on the MLS are not your highest end images. They're all medium to low range houses. And if in this industry, you're not working with the agents that do those lower end properties, you're going to be missing out on a lot of money. Am I saying you're not going to be able to make it if you don't work with those agents? Not at all. There are tons of photographers out there that only do high-end imagery work. But in my personal experience, that hasn't worked out for me. I do high-end work. My high-end images make up roughly 10% of all the products ordered on my website. You know what's a higher percentage than that? Videos. Videos are 22%. Now, traditional MLS makes up about 60%. Now, these are all of these lower end homes that I was just talking about. These agents that specialize in these homes are trying to push them quickly, but they also have a very strict marketing budget for these properties because the sale price is lower, so everyone is working off of lower budgets. Now, it's important you be able to provide a product for these clients. So I have a few different products that I offer. I offer your bare niche vacant lot special, which is literally what it sounds like. It's just aerials for a vacant lot. Then my next product up is my traditional MLS photography. Why I love this product is because, number one, I do everything myself. There are no outsourcing involved. Number two, I've set up my shoot time in a way that makes my editing time very minimal, so the time invested into the property is less, thus making me more per hour. That is the most important part. And number three, I can always have a 24-hour turnaround. I didn't mention this in my earlier facts, but almost every agent I work with wants a 24-hour turnaround. Agents, when I tell them there's going to be a 48-hour turnaround, the ones that accept that timeline, they always expect it sooner than 48 hours. So this has been a big problem with my business personally, is dealing with outsourcing. Outsourcing can be profitable and it can be a time saver, but you really have to think about the amount of work you have to put in to the entire process. As I mentioned a little earlier, my number one seller is my traditional MLS photography. This is not the high-end images that I send off to my editor that require a 48-hour turnaround that I have to pay per image to produce. My highest seller are the images that I go out, take on site, come home, edit that night, and send off. This is advantageous for two reasons. Number one, it saves that outsourcing fee, which allows me to charge a tiny bit less, but still make more in the end. Now, I know what you're going to say. It's well worth it for me to just send all my images off to someone else to edit. That may be true, except for the fact that if you're relying on an outsourced editor, you're doing just that. You're relying on someone else. What if that person's sick? What if that person's on holiday? What if that person just doesn't feel like working that day? There are tons of things that go into dealing with an outsourced editor. The greatest part about me is that if I get up and I go to work, then I come home and I finish work. Now I have my system laid out. I do flash photography on site, which a lot of people do, but a lot of people are training this one flash, multiple pop method where you walk around the house and pop lights all over, bring it back in Photoshop and paint in certain areas. This is very painstaking, and yes, it does create a far superior image, but 90% of the agents that I am working for don't even notice that small amount of increase that it does provide. What I do instead is I walk around with multiple strobes, set them around, and do a single in-camera exposure and edit that exposure in Lightroom when I get back home. Now, I never have to open Photoshop, at least not when we're doing these traditional MLS photos. I have a basic color correction and exposure preset in Lightroom built out, so I can sync it across all the interiors. I have another one for exteriors, sync that across all, and this allows me to spend literally seconds on images as opposed to minutes, or in some cases an hour. I know when I was starting off doing Flambient, I was doing that style and it takes me roughly 20 minutes to properly edit a Flambient image. The sad part is that most of my agents didn't even notice the quality increase. I noticed it, and about maybe 10% of the agents that ordered from me noticed it. But when I went back to my traditional MLS ways, not a single agent had an issue with it. As a matter of fact, they all loved it. It was easier for me, it was cheaper for them, and they sell their houses. In today's market, it is a seller's market. Those high-end images, once again, unless you are selling a luxurious house or a house with giant rooms, which does happen, those traditional images work better. Now, back to the two main styles of editing and why this is important. Number one, I have the traditional MLS photos. This encompasses about 90% of the agents I work for because they are still a superior image to what most people provide in our area for a lower price. I do it in a less amount of time. I turn them around quicker, and therefore my agents are happier. All of those go into it. Traditional MLS photos. Now back to the high-end MLS photos, that's about 10% of my agents, maybe less. It's a very small amount because once again, in today's market, in my area in particular, it is a seller's market. If your house costs under $600,000, it is sold in hours or days. If your house is $1 million house, it's only sitting for a month. Properties in our area right now are scarce, so that means quicker sale times, which also means agents are spending less on the marketing materials that go with these properties because they know they can. It's because houses are selling so quickly, they don't need to spend the extra $200. I'm still doing video work on my high-end properties and properties that tend to last on the market for about a month, but the videos I was doing on traditionally smaller houses have all but gone away, and that's because of the market. Now, if you have subscribed to my channel and watched my other videos, you know I talk every single time about how important it is that you be fluid, that you can fluctuate with what is going on in today's market and the way people are spending money. You can continue to be the photographer that only works high-end jobs, but I can tell you right now, in my area, Raleigh, North Carolina, those photographers are far and few between. And with everyone out of work, it's produced a whole lot more range of amateur photographers in our industry, which somehow negates our prices. It's funny. People shop around, they're like, but this guy will do it for this much. I said, go right on ahead. Like, I'm already operating at a very, very cheap price. If my prices aren't cheap enough for the agents, then please feel free to go somewhere else, because I just can't produce work for less. But let's now talk about the difference in the money that I make. Now, as I mentioned before, two main products we keep talking about in this episode: traditional and high-end. Traditional images, I keep 100% of what comes in the door. High-end images, I pay per image to have edited. So most agents want those 30 images because that's what the MLS allocates. Even if you're spending $2 an image, that's $60 you just spent to have someone edit these images. Guess who keeps that $60 in my plan? Me. I keep that $60. My high-end imagery isn't even that much more expensive than my traditional MLS photos. So I basically factored in the upcharge of what it costs me to edit those photos. But guess what? That extra $60 makes a lot of difference to some agents. Some agents are working on very thin margins, so they're looking for as cheap as possible, surprise, surprise, with the highest quality possible. Once again, surprise. Like, we haven't heard that before. Can't you go cheaper? Don't you give a discount? Is there no way you can go cheaper? I know this is a very difficult subject matter. We talk about it a lot. Our artistic value is being denigrated daily. All of our rates have gone down over the past few years, and if you compare it to rates over the past 20 years, a photographer's rate has plummeted. But I think that's really a lot of people's pay. Real estate seems to be the only industry that still keeps fairly high prices for its workers, and that's just because it requires a special skill set. Real estate photography is not like portrait photography. You can't take a bad real estate image and fix it by turning it black and white. You cannot take a vertically incorrect image into Lightroom and throw a color filter onto it and make it look okay like you can with portrait work. Portrait work is very salvageable. It's very editable. Is that a word? No, I don't think so. Portrait work is very salvageable. You can take just about anything from portrait work and turn it into something artistic. But in real estate, you can't do that at all. Everything has to be 100% all the time. If it's not right in the camera, it's not right in the finished product. Always noticeable. I don't know how this video is turning out. I feel like I've kind of just been blabbering at my camera for the past hour about random nonsense related to my packaging and pricing. So hopefully this all congeals into a nice finished product for you all. It's not going to be the last time I talk about this subject matter, but it is the first time. My next few episodes, I'm really going to be delving into the content creation side and how you as a content creator can step up your game, offer more products, and more importantly, have a higher take home to support yourself and your family, because that's what it's all about. That's why we're here. Like, we want to produce pretty images, don't get me wrong, but we also want to make a living. We have to eat. We have to live. Keep producing, keep being fluid. Rock on. Catch me next time.